Thanks for staying with us. Let's now take you to, the Americas, where leaders of Brazil and Mexico have offered to wade into conflict between the United States and Venezuela to avert the risk of war. This is as the U.S. ramps up military and economic pressure on the Venezuelan government to unseat President Nicolas Maduro. The United Nations Security Council will meet next Tuesday at the request of Venezuela, backed by China and Russia, for dialogue over the tension-soaked situation. The Brazilian President, Luis Lula da Silva, says he is very worried about the mounting crisis on his country's doorstep. President Trump accused the Venezuela president of leading a drug trafficking cartel. He told Politico last week that the Venezuelan president's days are numbered, and he declined to rule out ground attacks on the country by the U.S. Venezuela has the world's largest proven oil reserves. Years of mismanagement and corruption have reportedly affected its oil production and the growth of the country's economy. In recent years, President Nicolas Maduro says the United States is bent on a change of regime in Venezuela, with interest of taking over its oil reserves. And joining me now from Indianapolis in the United States to discuss the rift between the U.S. and Venezuela is global affairs analyst Kunle Falowo. Good to have you join us, Kunle.
Thanks for having me.
Let me just now is President Sheinbaum of Mexico and President Lula da Silva of Brazil. They're the latest voices in this conflict, trying to ensure that it doesn't result to an armed conflict in Latin America. I'm wondering if they have the clout to broker or to be the mediators in this potential conflict.
Absolutely. So, for the record, it doesn't benefit any part or any region, especially the Caribbean region. We all know that Brazil shares a border with Venezuela to the north, and of course, Mexico. All of those countries in that region are not going to be very comfortable when you're having fleets of ships and about 15,000 U.S. military troops stationed in the waters of Caribbean, just monitoring things and technically disrupting the activities and business activities on the seashore. And that is not good for any country, especially Latin America. So it is a very brave move, a brave step for President Lula da Silva to step forward and identify himself as someone who is willing and able to come to have both parties come together and negotiate and have a political discussion that will not lead to any bloodshed or further bloodshed, because we have to remember 25 or 75 people already lost their lives in their attack by, commanded by the U.S. president on the waters of the Caribbean, where about 25 boats were bombed and about 75 people were killed. So, in order to avoid further bloodshed, negotiations and roundtable conversations is absolutely necessary.
It doesn't look like President Trump wants to have any sort of conversation or dialogue with President Maduro. It looks like he wants him out of office. He wants an outright ouster. Are you also concerned that President Trump might take the option of directly unseating the Venezuelan president?
Well, he's already taking those steps. For example, if you look at what he said in the past, quite recently, he just put a $50,000 bounty on any information that could lead to the arrest of Maduro. And he also has put about 15,000 military personnel on the waters, seized some tankers and some vessels going out of Venezuela. And he has termed and identified this Venezuelan president and his allies as people of special interest, meaning that they could be arrested anytime. And he had put some formulations to that. So he means business, and he's serious about it. And to be honest, there's no easy route for this. But the president likes to appear very tough on crime and war and and especially when it comes to drugs, because he has accused the Venezuelan president of aiding drugs to come into the United States through their borders and through their waters without being checked. So all of these are not good for the Venezuelan president or any countries in the Americas. However, it is important to keep the side of caution because we're starting to see heavyweight political leaders, United Nations representatives, top individuals calling for dialogue instead of outrage or war between both countries because it's not going to be good for anyone.
And what would be the implication of direct conflict in that region? And are you optimistic about negotiations yielding any sort of results?
Well, to start with, there's going to be a lot of migrant displacement. A lot of people are going to be affected. Already, Venezuela is not a very wealthy country, although they do have a lot of oil reserve, but there's some incidences and accusations of corruption in that government, particularly Maduro's government. There are human rights abuses, allegations of human rights abuses, and Maduro's accused of intentionally imprisoning political dissidents and things of that nature. So it wouldn't be nice, especially ordinary Venezuelans will be affected. They're going to have to start, going out to other countries, and that's going to be another political or migration crisis in that region. So it wouldn't be something that would be nice for any country, in particular, United States. So it's just very important that top political leaders, especially in Latin America and other important personalities, come out to let the president know that instead of going all out war, it is important to also try out negotiations and dialogue. We also do know that President Trump had called Maduro sometime last week to ask him to leave and his family to leave the country within a specific period of time. And he would be spared, but he didn't listen to that. So hopefully, after all of this fear tactics and all of this, we're hoping
All
that
right.
it doesn't come out to a full-fledged war, and negotiations and dialogue, will be the best route.
We'll see how things plays out, especially as United Nations Security Council have a conversation on this. Thank you so much for your time, as always. Global Affairs Analyst, Kule Falo.
Thank you for having me.